All right. Thanks for tuning into ProLion TV as it's another Friday. Thanks for tuning in. We did this last week to kick off the college basketball coverage full-time here on ProLion TV. And off to a really good start, Jim. The one thing that you wanted to zero in on last week was Michigan State and the fact that you said to sell now. So if Michigan State was a stock, you would have had a lot of fans out there pretty grateful, or investors pretty grateful. And I would hope there are gamblers.
But I also pissed off the Michigan State fans because now they've lost a couple.
Well, that's not your fault. So if anything, then it was just a good way for them to just prepare for the inevitable. And that wasn't even the really tough part of the schedule that we were talking about. So Michigan State might be in for a tough go out of it for the month of February. We've got a bunch of other games.
The reason I zeroed in on them is one of the reasons. I mean, nothing against their coach because we know who he is. He's excellent. But they've had a very soft schedule. And when you look at strength of schedule, and then they're undefeated, people are pointing to them. It's a motivational issue for the other teams. And they're all trying to make headway and get to the next level. And so they get motivated, and the other team that's winning every game gets a little lax, and that's what happens.
Yeah, but that schedule, we went over it last week. You could check out our show from last week, or you could just obviously, just check out the schedule yourself. But we went over how tough the schedule is going to be for Michigan State. They went out west, USC, and this is going to be something new, too, for a lot of these Big Ten schools. Now that USC and UCLA are part of the conference, they're going to be making these trips, the USC-UCLA trips, where they're going to get two of them out west. And it did not go well for the Spartans in those two contests. And speaking of UCLA, we last week talked about just one team that I had future money on, and that was Florida. Well, this week, I've added several more teams. So I've added 3 more teams, and one of those teams is playing tonight, and that is St. John's at 40-1 to win the national championship. Now, I wanted to do that tonight because I believe that if they beat UConn, the run that they're on, that could drop significantly, maybe down to 30-1 or something like that, which is enough to get me motivated to make the announcement right now. But this is not going to be easy for St. John's. Their schedule has not been overly tough. The Big East is not as good this year as it has been in years past.
Correct.
But they are a significant dog for a team that is on a hot streak. They're getting plus 165, which is pretty nice for a team as hot as St. John's. But it looks like UConn is going to get that kid McNeely back. And that's why I believe the line is what it is.
It's gone from 2 to 4.5.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. I think I think everybody feels confident now that McNeely's going to play tonight. And that was, I think, the last kind of bit of news that people needed because, he's been kind of questionable for the past week, but looks like he's going to get the nod tonight. Keep in mind, Diarra and Mahaney are also banged up, so I'm not sure what their status is tonight for UConn. But for St. John's, they're coming off a win on Tuesday, probably their best win of the year, beating Marquette on Tuesday. UConn also, I believe their last win was against Marquette. I think they beat them last week. I believe so, because I think Marquette has dropped 2 straight going into their matchup that we're going to talk about in a little while against Creighton. But anyway, look, I'm talking about this because of the futures. Keep in mind, the game is tonight. By the time you see this video, the game will probably be over already. We're recording this at 5:15 Eastern on Friday night. But again, it's about the futures at 40-1. What do you think about me going with Mr. Pitino? Because again, I think if there's a team, the type of team that can make a run in a wide open type of tournament is the type of team that has a coach like Pitino.
You need a coach that knows how to handle the pressure, to be able to calm his players down and put them in the right mindset for a one and done type of tournament. Which is not what they face on an everyday basis, especially on a national stage. Pitino knows how to do that. And last week when we talked about UCLA, that coach knows how to do it too. And I see that's one of your new futures. and because we had talked about that, and I agree with that. I mean, you never know. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, we have this whole new thing with transfers and
Yep.
gelling players and the chemistry, which is kind of what I miss. I talked to a guy who was in coaching for 30 some years and now he's scouting. He's kind of semi-retired. He said, well, the biggest problem is getting all these people to get along, not only on the court, but off the court, and gelling, and then getting along with the coaches as well. So it's like a new family being put together. It's like adopted children almost. And we have seen some coaches quit because it's too difficult to navigate this whole new thing that's going on. And I mean, in years to come, 3-4 years from now, everything will settle down. They'll come up with some modification on the rules and make it a little bit more pleasant to deal with. But right now it's a little confusing. But by the time they make the tournament, a lot of these people are going to be gelled a lot better than they were a month ago or even now. So, yeah, you want an experienced coach. You want somebody that is experienced that still wants to stick around. I mean, Larinaga didn't. He and there's others quitting too, because it's tough, especially if you're older and you don't want to change your ways. But right now, I like the futures you have up there, and you got a real long shot coming. I'm not going to mention it. You can mention it. It's at the bottom of your list.
Well, you mentioned UCLA, and they're 90-1, and they've got a coach, Cronin. Let's keep this in mind. Last year, they don't make the tournament. It was the first time that they had this slip up, or they were under 500 under Cronin. But before that, they had a run of making Sweet 16s, Final Fours. And keep in mind, last year's team was very young. So this year's team now is more experienced, more upperclassmen. They brought in some really good transfers. They went through a bad rut about a month ago where they lost like 4 out of 5. But now it looks like there's, like you just said, they're starting to gel together as a unit. And they do have a lot of returning players from last year. So it's not like, even though they brought in some new faces, they still have, a handful of guys that were key to their team last year that are back. And so they're on I think a 5-game win streak, and you could still get them at 90-1. And again, another situation where you've got a program that even better so than St. John's, because they haven't been to the big dance, or at least even anywhere near the Final Four, I think, since the Chris Mullin days. So UCLA, though, it's just been a few years since Mick Cronin has had this Bruins team competing for a national championship. I know these aren't the same players, but the point is, it's the same coach, it's the same program, it's the same style, and I think that's a no-brainer at 90-1.
I believe it is. Right now, I mean, when you start analyzing this, we know that the 3-point shot, whether it's NBA or WNBA or college, it's the one flaky statistic that if you're a 40% 3-point shooter and then you have a night you're hitting 10 or 12 or 15, you might get beat. And that is the toughest, most inconsistent shot. If you have a team that is consistently good from the outside or gets hot at the right time from the outside, you can beat anybody, because it's hard to defend when everybody's hitting. When you get one of those nights where you go 6 for 10 from 3 or even more than that. But then you have teams that are good inside and outside. And that's what I like to look for. If somebody has an off night from the perimeter, they can do damage on the boards. They can get the second shot. They can get the rebound. And they have the coaching to know how to make the adjustments. So strategically, going forward, that's what I'm going to be looking for as these tournaments start.
As you can see here, this is the 6-game winning streak UCLA is under. They've had nice wins: Wisconsin, Michigan State. They're going to be playing some more tough games. I mean, Illinois on the road. Purdue, of course, will be a big one on the road later on in the season. And you could just take a look overall at their makeup of their team here. This is what they look like here. This kid's one of their transfers, the Oregon State kid, and he's actually leading the team in scoring. I don't think they expected that. Dylan Andrews was the one that they really thought was going to have a breakout after he had a really good year last year. His production has come down a bit, but I think that's because, again, they're a little older. They have a couple more transfers. So I think that's the reason. It's not because he's not any better. I just think they're a better team and they have more production surrounding him. So anyway, so that's UCLA. But the other team that you were talking about, I'm just going to type them up right here, is Baylor. And I was really surprised. I did not expect, because we haven't talked about Baylor a lot yet.
No,
in any of our shows.
No.
And I was kind of surprised when I saw that they were 130-1, because this is a team preseason that had a lot of expectations. A lot of people think, why not? This is Baylor. They've got a great coach. They've got a championship coach. This is a program that's constantly in the running for the Big 12 championship. Okay, are they, playing under expectations so far? Yeah, but that's the whole idea, is trying to take advantage of the odds right now, where you can say, hey, wait a second. If they go on a run, they've got the talent to go deep into this tournament. And that's the whole reason why I thought it was a smart move to jump on top of them. Right here, you see this is another transfer. This is the Miami transfer, by the way. This kid Omir. So he came from Miami. He's a double-double guy. This kid here, Edgecombe, he's a 5-star. So they have two really touted freshmen here, but they're surrounded by veterans. And this kid Roach came from Duke, a very good player from Duke. And what I also like, two of the transfers that are on the team both have Final Four experience in their background. So they've got players that are have got winning tournament pedigree, a championship coach, 5-star freshman, and if they can put it all together, why wouldn't I go ahead and say, hey, at 130-1, I'll give them a shot?
Well, yeah, and before this podcast goes out, because a lot of people watch it, they better get on it before it goes down, because we will drive a little bit of money on Baylor, and you can get a great price. I mean, even if you get it over 101, you're still good, but 130 is kind of sweet.
Yeah, the thing about Baylor is, and I looked at their schedule as well, all of their losses, every single one of them were against quality teams. So they don't have like bad losses. They don't have a lot of big wins. But again, you're talking about a team that has the capability. Here's one of their big wins. They beat St. John's. Mm-hmm. So they have had the ability to beat quality teams. They've got a really good roster. And I think if they can just put it all together at the right time, I think it is a really good option at 130-1. Okay, let's get into Saturday's games now. That's what we're here for. And Tennessee and Oklahoma at 12 o'clock. That's going to be one of the big ones early on, only because this is huge for Oklahoma. They got off to a great start this year. They won that conference. I mean, one of those holiday tournaments, surprised everybody, but they've been struggling since then. So they really need this one at home. Unfortunately, they're playing a Tennessee team now that's won 2 straight, beating 2 very good teams, Missouri and Florida, on their home court. And they've kind of righted themselves. They were, kind of in a little bit of a down situation there for several weeks, but now they're back. It looks like it's only a 5-point spread. I'd probably have to go with Tennessee because that's not a lot to give up in this spot. As good as they're looking. Keep in mind, Oklahoma is coming off a loss at Auburn by 28 points on Tuesday.
Well, Auburn's a monster, and if you get on the wrong side of one of their hot streaks or a hot night, you're in trouble. Tennessee is rolling. I agree with you on Tennessee in this spot.
Yeah, Oklahoma, just trying to see here so I make sure what that tournament was. There it is. So I'll keep this up here so everybody can see what I'm doing. So how
much credit do you give for? I know every home court is different. I mean, when you look in football in the NFL, it's almost meaningless now. I mean, they used to give anywhere from 3 to 7 points, and now it's most people say like 1.5. College basketball, what do you like? Each team, you have value for the home court. Like Oklahoma's home court, Indiana's home court, Creighton's home court. What value do you put on those home courts?
I still think it's hard to win on the road in college basketball. And I guess if it's 3 in the NFL, we'd probably have to say somewhere along the lines of what, 5 in basketball?
It's not 3 anymore in the NFL. It's more like 1.
Oh, okay.
Statistically, the NFL, I mean, in the old days when, like, for example, Seattle at home was just unbeatable.
Yeah, that's true.
Some people would say it was 7, and other teams with 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4. But now statistically, the home field in NFL is really close to meaningless. But in college hoops, that's a whole different animal. I mean, the crowd's running on top of you. I mean, everything. But here we are, laying 5. Right now the number is 5 at Oklahoma. You just said tough to win on the road, but yet you want to lay 5 with Tennessee on the road.
And see, this is the start Oklahoma got off to 13-0. They won a tournament. Look at the 2 teams they beat: Arizona and Louisville.
Not bad.
These are good basketball teams. So
but now they've flattened out.
Yes. So they started 13-0. They went to Alabama and they lost 107-79. And it was like a big wake-up call. And since then, let's see, they're 16-6. So they're 3-6 in their last 9. So, okay, that's the 12:00 game. Now let's move on to, I just want to, there's that Michigan-Indiana game I wanted to talk about. Michigan, Indiana, they're going to be looking for a new coach. There's 2 schools that I am surprised that they still let their coaches come back this year. One was Villanova. We talked about that last week. And the other one is Mike Woodson. I'm just shocked that they have just allowed Mike Woodson to keep coaching here year in and year out, when I was surprised by the hire in the first place. And he's just they underachieve every year. And so this is it. He's done. He's gone unless they make a big turnaround. If you look at it, they've lost 4 straight games. Michigan's playing some good ball. They've won 3 straight. What do you think about the fact that Michigan's won 3 straight? It's 2.5. And I know what you're going to say here, because I would definitely do this as well. But Michigan has dropped 6 straight covers. So what does that tell you to do when it's 2.5?
Well, give me let's talk the other side. I mean, there's 2 teams involved here. What about Indiana, the coaching issue, players? I mean, who's more motivated? Not every team in this conference is going to make the tournament. So who? What, 15 out of the 18 are going to make the tournament? Is that the number? I think it is.
No, maybe for the SEC this year. But no, the Big Ten is not having a big year. No, this is a down year for the Big Ten.
I'm not talking the NCAA. I'm talking about their own conference tournament.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to check that. You would think I
think it's 15 of the 18 teams make the conference tournament.
Okay.
I think so.
You might be right, because you probably got to think about somebody's going to get some buys, and you want to put, let's say it could be 16, because then you'd have 4 buys, and I think that would work out better. But I could check.
I think it's honestly, I do believe I read 3 teams are left out, but
okay, could be. It's an odd number. That's the only reason why I say that.
Of these 2 teams, Michigan and Indiana, who would be more motivated to try to make up that ground? And
definitely Indiana.
Okay, but are they capable?
That's the thing. They've lost 4 straight, as I said. There's a lot of people that have just lost all sorts of faith with Indiana. But the Hoosiers have beaten Michigan 4 straight, all by 5 or less. It's just that, but again, for your point, they are definitely the team that needs the win. Michigan is going to the tournament. No question.
It's an ultimate disrespect to be an underdog at home, especially college kids that, they look at it. I mean, not everybody's going to the pros. So these games are important for these kids. And to be the underdog at home against a rival like Michigan, that's a motivating factor. And I always have trouble laying points on the road because you said earlier it's hard to win on the road, and
Yep.
and I agree with that. However, sometimes there's mismatches and somebody's just playing absolutely terrible, and that's why you and I both favor Tennessee in that game against Oklahoma, even though it goes against what we just said.
Well, I would either see in this situation, I probably myself, I think Indiana is not a bad play. If I had to take the game, I'd stay away from this game. But if I had to take the
Yeah,
game, I'd probably
you don't have to bet every game. That's
yeah. That's why if I was going to take this game, I'd go ahead, take Indiana plus the 3. Because I don't know. How do you do these basketball games with points? Do you buy half of points?
Well, not generally, no.
John, so you would go with 2.5 if you were the dog, and not 3.
Yeah, it's you can buy a half a point in pro football because there's some points that are more meaningful than others, but in college, I mean, the way they score and the pace of the games, and
is that because also the amount of money that you wager on, as opposed to say somebody that wagers say $10 on a game, buying half a point's not much out of as opposed to if you're betting 1,000 on the game, that half a point's going to cost you a little bit.
Well, no, it's because everything's relative. You take a person with a bankroll of $10 million versus a person with a bankroll of $100. It's all relative.
Okay.
So to me, I mean, look, we go to the next game, Marquette at Creighton. Creighton's 1.5 point favorite. Now, basically, when you make a home team 1.5, you're basically saying Marquette's the better team because you're not giving Creighton the full home court value of, let's say, 3 or 4, which would be kind of typical in college basketball. So they're saying Marquette's the better team. Creighton's a 1.5 point favorite. It's not. Now, when you look at Michigan at 2.5, you know that Michigan's the better team according to the odds makers because they're 2.5 point favorite on the road, where they're giving up something because they're on the road. They had to travel, they had to get on a plane, they had to get on a bus, they had to deal with weather, they had to unpack, they had to stay in a hotel, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of times, home court advantage is really the traveling team's disadvantage more than the home court advantage. So, long, short story there is the road team is the better team, and they're favored. With the Marquette Creighton game, which is the opposite, Creighton's 1.5 points. But if they were really the better team, they'd probably be 5 or 6. If they were equal, the odds maker would probably have them 3.5 or 4.
The way I would do the Michigan-Indiana one, if I liked Michigan, I'm definitely doing the money line, especially because they've dropped 6 straight covers. And 2, taking Indiana, again, that's one thing, but the other thing to keep in mind is, and again, if it's up to you if you want to buy the half point or not. Jim gave you his reasons why not. But the other thing is,
well, I'd rather do the money line than buying half points. Definitely.
Okay, on the side of the favorite.
Yes.
So another thing to point out, because we talk about this a lot, and I've referenced this many times this season on college football, is especially in college football, but NFL too, which is a team that has the advantage over the other team in their series, especially if it's a division matchup, a conference matchup, rivalries. But then the team that's losing in that series is the favorite. Well, that's what's happening here. Indiana's beaten Michigan 4 straight times, and yet Michigan's the favorite, and Indiana's an okay team. So it's not like they're a terrible team. And as you said, Jim, they've got a lot more motivation. They need the game desperately. Michigan does not. So there you go. Make the decision which way you want to go. All right. So Marquette and Creighton, as you said, Marquette's dropped these last 2 in a row, lost to Connecticut and St. John's, but they're still in great shape. They're 3rd in the Big East. Creighton is 2nd in the Big East. So the Blue Jays, by the way, I think that was one of our picks last week in the win over Villanova. And boy, that was a bad game, by the way. I mean, Creighton had like a zillion turnovers, which kept Villanova in the game. and they still won Creighton. So very fortunate to come out of that game as bad as they looked, giving the ball away.
Well, in this game here, I mean, I would definitely, if I'm playing this game, I'm playing Creighton, I'm playing them on the money line. I'm not laying the points. I'm just saying
Yes,
money line,
especially at 1.5. Yeah.
Yes.
And Creighton, as you can see here, they're on an 8-game winning streak. And as far as the spread, 10-0-1 in their last 11, 13-1-1 in their last 15, 14-7-2 on the season. So this is when they have gotten really hot ATS. 13-1-1 in the last 15. Marquette has beaten Creighton 4 of the last 5, including an 8-point win last month as a 10-point favorite. So Creighton looking for a little bit of revenge here.
And that's a big factor. Revenge with college kids, that's a big factor.
Yep. So I'm going to go with Creighton in that one. So out of the games that we've talked about so far, I'll go with Tennessee and Creighton. Before we move on from these 2:00 games, I just want to throw this in here. Miami and Louisville. Louisville's an 18.5-point favorite. Miami is 5-17 against the spread. 5-17. But this is important. This is why I want to bring this up. You might see that and go, well, 5-17, I'm jumping all over Louisville. Miami's 2-1 against the spread in their last 3. So as crazy, that means they were 3-16 against the spread not too long ago. How bad is that?
And what did you say the spread was? Because I don't see that on the sheet.
18.5.
Well,
that's how bad Miami is, and that's Louisville obviously having a really good season. So
I wouldn't lay 18.5 with your money.
I know that's one of those. What number do you go to that pretty much is your barrier?
Well, this is a different time of year now. We've gone through the rabbit time, which is November, December, and now we get into conference play, and then we got the conference play with right around the corner is the tournament play, and right around the corner is the big tournament. So there's a lot of things on the minds of the coaches and the players that weren't on their minds in November when they were playing rabbits in schools that they're paying a lot of money to just to have a game. So no, I'm not laying. I mean, automatically to me, I take the points. I just don't. I just don't lay those kind of numbers unless it's in November and you're playing Little Sisters of the Poor and you're laying 30. You might win by 50.
Like this one, East Texas A&M against Texas A&M, one of those kind of matchups. So
yeah, exactly.
So Texas A&M and Missouri, it's our next matchup in the SEC. These are two teams that are pretty much tied third place in a very good conference, best conference in college basketball. So these are two tournament teams. Missouri is a 2.5-point favorite. Texas A&M, though, has beaten Missouri 4 straight times. So again, same situation we just talked about with Indiana, Michigan. The team that's lost 4 straight against the other team is the favorite. But in this situation, Missouri is a better team, and they're at home. Texas A&M, as you can see here, they've won 4 out of 5 overall, and their one loss in this stretch was just 1 point at Texas. So they're playing some really good ball.
Have they played this year yet?
No, they have not. This was over the last.
Well, the odds makers are telling you that Missouri is not the better team because they're giving you a line that's short of what home court is. They're thinking that A&M is actually the better team.
And I agree with that. Yeah, I think that is the case.
But that doesn't mean that Missouri won't step up. But if you're playing
True.
Missouri, it has to be a money line play. If you like A&M, you can take the 2.5.
Yep, there you see Missouri coming off that loss to Tennessee a few nights ago. That was on the road, but that's it's okay. It's a 4-point loss. It's a tough one.
That's a 4-point loss on the road to Tennessee is not a bad game.
Nope, not at all.
Now
we get another.
That's quality basketball.
Yes. And now we get another big game in the SEC. Auburn, the top team in the land.
Yeah,
against my boys, the Florida Gators. I think it's time for Auburn to lose a game. The spread's 8.5. A lot of respect for Florida, 8.5. These are two teams that are combined 40-4 on the season. and they're both very good against the spread. They both have good spread numbers. The home team in the series has won 5 straight, covering 4 to 5 since 2022. Auburn has won 3 straight, all by double digits. Covered 3 straight, I should say, because obviously they're on a huge winning streak. They've only lost to Duke at Cameron. And Florida is 4-1 in their last 5. 4-1 straight. Of course, the loss was last week for Florida at Tennessee when Tennessee got revenge for getting blown out by 30 earlier in the year.
That was amazing. I mean, how those two teams just flip-flop blowouts like that.
And that's what we just talked about with revenge.
Crazy stuff
in college basketball. Yes. So I don't think this is a bad idea for a money line play, to tell you the truth. I would
not. The money line play on Auburn is huge. That's a big price.
I'm saying for Florida.
Oh, well, okay. So you're looking for them to win the game straight up.
Yes.
I'm taking the 8.5.
I have no problem with that as well.
I'm not going to Auburn and saying I'm going to win the game. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, well, that's why it's a pretty big spread. Remember last week's games?
I take the 8.5.
What was last week's?
You're $500 better. You bet $450 on the 8.5, and you put $50 on the money line dog. That's the way you sprinkle it around a little bit. You can do that.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah,
that's called sprinkling.
And we'll have to.
That up,
Oh, okay. Don't get me started. I'll make a segment out of that on our.
The
thumbnail will say sprinkling.
No, we're not sprinkling. Don't say that.
I won't. Before we move on from the 4:00 games, just another tidbit in the Conference USA. Sam Houston is at Liberty. Liberty is clearly the better team. They're 3rd in the Conference USA. Sam Houston's 10th. The reason I bring this up, Liberty is 14-6 against the spread this year, including beating Sam Houston by 8 last month as a 3-point favorite. Sam Houston is 4-16 against the spread. So I don't have a line in that game yet. I don't know if you see a line.
Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem, Greg, with something like this. Everybody sees that record, and they say, "Oh, 4-16 or whatever the hell you just said it was." Yeah, but that the odds maker knows that too.
Yeah, that's why the lines go up.
They're going to make it's called taxing the players. They're going to tax the players for following that trend. Very simple.
And again, remember, just a month ago, they were a 3-point favorite on the road. So I'm very intrigued to find out what they would be with this number that you're talking about. Because
probably 11 or 12.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. Okay. Another game I just want to throw in there before we get to some more big ones here is BYU at Cincinnati. That game's at 6. I'm bringing this up because BYU beat Cincinnati by 28 points just a couple of weeks ago as a 6-point favorite. And now they're a 1.5-point dog at Cincinnati. BYU is 6th in the Big 12. Cincinnati is 15th in the Big 12. And BYU has won 5 out of 7. Cincy is 3-8 in their last 11.
I think BYU beats them again.
Yeah, that's to me, that's showing a little bit of disrespect. You just beat them by 28 points, and you're the 1.5-point dog. And by the way, BYU was considered going into the season as the better team, and they are.
They are the better team. That's why I said they're going to beat them again.
So there you go.
Even though there's revenge. The revenge team laying points, not a good idea.
And look, the other thing too is revenge is one thing, but also you have to be a good team.
Well, yeah, I mean, and they're not.
No, so. It's one thing to go get behind Tennessee with revenge. It's another thing to get behind Cincinnati. All right, Duke and Clemson.
Wow, now you're talking. We just talked about Auburn. Now we're talking about Duke. I mean, talking about the two best. Right now, the two best teams in basketball, Auburn and Duke.
And Duke sitting here on this long winning streak. Of course, there's their only loss against Actually, they've had the 2 losses to Kansas and Kentucky, the Blue Bloods. And now they're at Clemson. Clemson, of course, had a huge season last season. And some people thought they might, come back down to earth a little bit. They lost a few players, but nope. Brad Brownell has done a great job with this. I remember a couple of years ago, they wanted him out of there. They were so sick of him being there. He hadn't gotten to he had gotten the program to certain levels, and they had the big year last year, and he's come back right again. It's first place versus second place in the ACC. Duke's a 7.5-point favorite. Clemson had a 6-game winning streak snapped on Tuesday in the proverbial look-ahead game. They were a 12-point home favorite and lost to Georgia Tech. Duke, meanwhile, 3-1 in their last 4 against Clemson since 2022, but 1-3 against the spread in those 4. What about Duke and Clemson, Jim?
I'd take the dog.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
That should be a good game. That's at 6:30 on Saturday night.
I like Clemson coming off that upset loss, and they were pointing for Duke. I mean, they're not as good as Duke. Well, let's face it.
Sure.
But
yeah.
they're gonna come with a superhuman effort. Clemson plus the point sounds good to me.
So let's see here. They had an early loss at Boise, who's a good Mountain West team, and that's early in the season on the road. Good for them to schedule a game like that, by the way, because that was just a regular game. It wasn't a tournament game. And then they lost back-to-back overtime games to 2 okay teams, Memphis and South Carolina. Nothing great, but okay, not bad. They lost to a very good Louisville team on the road. And then they just came off. By the way, that was a 3 overtime loss on Tuesday to Georgia Tech. So at least that they were in it, Anyway, Clemson's 18-5. This would be huge for them if they can pull this off.
It's symbolic game. I mean, this is a big game for them. Much more important for them.
And their top player, Chase Hunter. And 17 a game. This other kid here. And this is what I like to see. Top 4 scorers. Senior. The next 3, junior. Not for this game, but that's what I always like to look at when we're taking a look at our brackets, tournament preview, which teams can make a run. I'm always looking at teams that are loaded with upperclassmen.
Well, there's a big difference between an 18-year-old and a 22-year-old. The maturation, the body growth, the strength, everything. It's a big difference. It's not like 38 to 42. This 18 to 22 is a big difference in physicality and maturity. And this is a big game. And that maturity helps them.
Alabama, Arkansas. Alabama 6.5 at Arkansas. It's going to go off at 8:30 tomorrow. And all of a sudden, John Calipari has his 14th. His Arkansas Razorbacks, who are in 14th place in the SEC, they've got a pulse with a shot at the tournament because they've just knocked off Kentucky and Texas.
And that was a big one. That was him going back home.
And followed it up by we had one big win. That was great. We let the emotion out. Now we're going to go back to being an average team. They went right back on the road to Texas and won. So they were a 9-point dog at Kentucky, a 7-point dog at Texas, and they've won 3 out of 4 since they lost one of their best players for the season, Boogie Fland. So whatever that means, they're rallying with a new chemistry.
Maybe that chemistry is a little better.
Maybe it is. Alabama, meanwhile, they have won 13 out of 14. Their only loss
They're tough.
Was at home as a 12-point favorite to Ole Miss, who's just a okay team.
Yeah, they just took that a little too late. Yeah.
So here, Arkansas, by the way, Alabama has beaten Arkansas 4 straight since 2022, but Arkansas has covered 8 out of the last 10 versus Alabama.
They play this year at all?
No, they have not.
I like Arkansas.
I do too. And I think this is also a game where I'm going to do like I did with Florida. I'm going to throw money on both the money line and the 6.5.
Okay.
Because again, Arkansas, if they can have a streak of Kentucky, Texas, and Alabama, They are right there.
Hey, you want to catch lightning in a bottle. I mean, when somebody gets hot, you got to ride with them. You ride the streak. You can only lose once. But when you start, you try to. I mean, not that Alabama's playing bad, but they are laying a big number here. That's 3 buckets plus. No, that's a take.
Yeah, looking at Arkansas's losses, they've only had one bad loss. That was the loss against. Let's see, they've lost to Baylor, Illinois, Tennessee, Mississippi, Florida. Oh, that was it. The Louisiana State loss. That was their only bad loss, and it was a 4-point road loss. Every other loss was against good quality competition, and they've got more. This is the SEC, so they have tons of games, quality games to add to their resume to make the tournament. So this is one of them.
That's one thing about these teams that we're talking about. I mean, they're all quality teams, quality athletes, and a lot of these players are going to be at the next level. It's
Texas Tech and Arizona as we move to the Big 12. And the Red Raiders, they're having another good season. They are 18-4, third in the Big 12. They're taking on the first place Big 12 Arizona Wildcats. They're tied with Houston, first place in the Big 12. They're a 2.5-point favorite against the Red Raiders. Texas Tech beat Arizona by 16 last month as a 4-point home favorite. They've won 9 out of 10.
Money line Arizona.
Oh, so you didn't even need to hear the rest. You're all over Arizona in this one.
Well, I know a little bit about these guys, and I like money line Arizona in this one. Okay. Don't you?
Yeah, I mean, Arizona's won 12 out of 13, and they got revenge on their side. Yeah, absolutely.
And here's the other thing is you got a 2.5 point favorite when they should be at home. They should be at least 3.5 or 4. Just if they're even teams, it should be at least 3 or 4.
Just like Texas Tech was. Texas Tech was a 4-point home favorite.
The odds maker are telling you they think Texas Tech is actually better.
Well, look, Texas Tech is again, they are in a great run right now. They beat Houston. This was last Saturday. We talked about that game last week.
And that is not easy to do.
No, that was a huge win for Texas Tech in overtime at Houston. They followed it up by beating a Baylor. So they are playing their best basketball of the season. But Arizona is no slouch, as I mentioned.
And with revenge.
They're on a little streak of themselves.
Perfect setup.
And by the way, that's the only loss, as I mentioned, that's the only loss for Arizona in their last 13 games, was the Texas Tech loss. Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to do one more thing, but let's just go over the picks so we just make sure what we have here. So again, I'm going to take Tennessee and Creighton. Again, I talked about Florida, BYU, Clemson, Arkansas, and Arizona. And out of those games, you like Arizona, BYU. Who else do you like in that? Anyone else?
I like Arkansas, Arizona, Clemson. I like Missouri and Creighton, but I don't like.
Oh, you do like Missouri?
Well, yeah, and then I also like BYU. Yeah.
Okay, so you like Missouri as well. So you're going to go with Missouri.
Well, it starts right there. Creighton, Missouri, Clemson, Arkansas, Arizona, and BYU.
Okay, cool. Excellent.
Well, that's 6 plays. Jeez. I like too much.
Thought that, right?
That's too many plays. That's a lot of plays.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to on The Athletic this week, I just got this is going to come like every week now. They have their bracket deal. And I'm just this is important because this just shows you the I don't know if you want to call it, again, basketball might be down a little bit, whatever you want to say about it. But it does look like this is a pretty much a down season for the sport. And a lot of that has to do with again, as we already talked about a million times, the transfers and especially because of the fact that the players are leaving early for the NBA and all that. But there's some criteria they have, and they are whether or not they believe a team is a lock to win it from the conference. They should be in the tournament, or they're in the mix or on the fringe. So those are the four. Locks, should be in the mix, and on the fringe. In the ACC, in the mix, I can't even believe that they're saying these teams are in the mix. North Carolina, Pitt, Wake Forest. Now, let me show you just so we can quickly show you what the standings look like. And again, I'm not saying they're wrong.
I'm saying, some of that could be political. It's like they play politics with a lot of this stuff.
Okay, so here's North Carolina, 6-5 in the ACC, which is a down conference. 13-10.
They should not be in the mix for anything.
Pittsburgh, 5-6, 14-8.
No,
these teams are in the mix.
Yeah, for the mix, they should be in the mix for the meat grinder. I mean, no, come on. But you do need what 68 teams to get into the big dance. So yeah, they're going to pull them from somewhere.
The Big 12 in the mix. Arizona State, 3-8 in the conference, and they're in the mix.
Yeah, well,
okay.
Well, anybody can pull an upset. I mean, why don't we just put Colorado in there at 0-11? It's just the hell.
So the point is, because I can go over all these, the point is I just wanted to make is it just shows you that there's just like you were saying, how many and by the way, Jim, of course, let's not forget they want to expand the tournament. So they think that they don't have enough teams in this tournament that they need to expand it so we can have teams like Pittsburgh and North Carolina in the tournament.
I think if they expand, they should probably pull in some of the smaller schools.
I agree.
Just to give them some.
Yes.
It worked. We're having the 12 team tournament in football. Really, okay. Not everybody, and the seeding was terrible. That'll get better. They'll get better at doing that. So you got to give them a pass the first year. But what it did is it brought in 12 fan bases and made it more exciting, as opposed to having 4 teams like they had. So it made it more exciting. I like what they did. I don't like the seeding, but they're changing things. But when they change things, things get messed up for a while until they figure it out. So I'm going to give them a pass.
And that's another reason why we actually think that this is a good year to try to get lucky on a long shot to win the national championship. Because what happened in college football.
I'm more interested in trying to pick a long shot because the day-to-day, I've been doing this a long time, and way before computers, way before analytics. I mean, 6 decades of this stuff. And I've never seen good teams get absolutely destroyed. I mean, it makes no sense.
Like Iowa State?
Well, the Florida, Kentucky, and what a 40-point game, and then another one back to back. I mean, come on. It's like
Iowa State lost at home to Kansas State last week by 19 points. And what were they? They were like a 10-point favorite or 15-point favorite or something.
It's just the I don't know what it is. It's got to be the gelling of the players aren't getting it. They don't gel yet. The chemistry isn't good. It's weird. I've never seen stuff like. I mean, yes, you would always have occasional blowouts, but there's so many more of them this year that it's kind of hard to digest it.
And that's why, as we said with the futures, this is a great time of year to start to keep an eye, and we're going to be updating you every week on teams that are.
I want some of these big long shots. That's exciting.
Yeah, and we've got 4 of them right now. We've got 3 big long shots, 2 really big ones with UCLA and Baylor, but we also have St. John's in Florida. So those are the 4 futures we have right now in college basketball. We'll keep adding if it looks like there are teams worth adding, because every time we do this show,
basically what we're going to end up doing is we're going to have to fade Duke and Auburn, because right now they look like the best teams in basketball.
Yes.
And in order to beat them, to have any of these things cash, you got to fade them.
Yep.
because they are clearly quality-wise, player-wise. I mean, they got some players that are just dynamic. We're going to have to figure out a way to beat them. So we got to fade them. And
Yes.
that's a tough job, but that's why you're getting the price.
Correct. Yes. And that's why because of course, could we see Auburn and Duke in the national championship game? Yes, of course.
Yeah, but that would be boring, and you'd have a 2-1 against a 3-1. I mean, we need something better than that.
Yes.
I mean, if you want to see the two best teams, right now they're the two best teams.
Well, I have to completely agree with you. I mean, I think there is a major difference between the top two and then the third. So, but we have a whole month to go and more. These teams are still playing a bunch of games. Then they got the tournament, the SEC and the ACC tournament. So we still have a long way to go as far as finding out whether or not maybe one of the two teams will go on a 2-game losing streak. Or
can I say something about football?
Besides it being over on Sunday, what?
Well, I'm gonna give a free prop right here.
Oh, a football prop. Okay.
Okay. Then I'm gonna give you the reason why.
Is it the octopus?
No.
Okay.
No. No. I'm gonna give you a reason why.
Okay.
Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid.
Yes.
And Spagnuolo.
Okay.
That's an edge that Kansas City has in the game.
That's definitely the case.
When it comes to offensive line, defensive line, running game, definitely Philadelphia.
Yes.
However, the proposition bet that I want to make here is in this game this proposition opened Patrick Mahomes 4.5 rushes. It went up to 5.5, where I betted it. I missed the 4.5. I bet over 5.5. It went all the way up to 7.5.
Whoa.
Then it started to back off, and it's back down to 5.5. Now you got to shop because there's a lot. Every place has a different number. So I'm just giving this out, and I'm going to give you the reason. First of all, and this isn't rushing yards. This is rushing attempts. It's important for that because
and they do count the kneel downs.
When a quarterback takes a knee, that's a rushing attempt.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. He could have 2 or 3 of them in the game. Yeah. Just that. Okay. Also, they don't have a very good running game. Pacheco's not healthy since his surgery. Hunt is average at best. They might get a couple rushes out of Worthy. But the running back is really going to probably open it up. What do you have, 9 or 10 or 11 rushes last week? In the regular season, he doesn't run much, but in the playoffs, he does. So I'm looking, and I think this is a really good bet. Please God, don't get hurt. As long as he doesn't get hurt, I think he could have 9 or 10 rushes. And it's only sitting at 5.5. The odds maker opened it at 4.5, and people just bet it up like crazy. I did too, but I bet it at 5.5. Now they started to bet it back down at 5.5. That's a bet because he's going to run the ball. They don't have much of a running game. He is going to run the ball. Some maybe design plays, maybe just everything breaks down and he takes off.
And by the way, if a defender tackles him and it's not a sack because he gains a half a yard, that's a rushing attempt, isn't it?
If
he gains a half a yard or a yard.
Yeah. Well, I imagine, yes. That wouldn't be a sack.
No.
Yeah, that would be a rush. Yes.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to gain any yards. He just has to run. He just has to be. And if he takes a knee, that's a rush.
Mm-hmm.
So you could get 2 or 3 knees in the right situation in a long game. And I think that's absolutely a must bet. Okay. And I know this is a basketball podcast.
Is that even?
You're going to have to shop for prices. Okay. I mean, this is all. These prices are all over the place. I mean, you could lay 180 on a prop. You could lay 110 on a prop. All these books have different numbers. They're all adjusting their numbers based on their own clientele. So you really got to shop. I mean, I got 11 outs on my computer that I can shop for numbers, but I know that's hard for most people to do. but do the best you can, because you can get some different numbers, a lot of different numbers. But I think that's a really good play.
Okay. Well, then it sounds good to me. I'll do it.
As long as he
You
doesn't
should
get
do it
hurt.
too.
Please don't get hurt.
Yeah, the league, nobody wants that unless you're an Eagle fan. So, yeah. And I don't even think Eagle fans necessarily would want that either.
No, probably not. Yeah,
They
probably.
want to beat them straight up.
Correct. It's good.
Okay.
It should be a good game.
Yeah, and again,
But
Jim is going to.
there's another thing I would like to say.
Okay.
Butker is a much better kicker than Elliott this year. And
Yes.
Butker's just an amazing kicker. They're playing indoors, perfect conditions. I doubt very much that you're going to see anybody. I don't think Butker's going to try a field goal over 49 yards, which is the number. Elliott might, but Elliott is so inconsistent, he probably is more than 50% to miss it. So Butker to get more than 2 field goals in the game or over 3 field goals at a really good plus price is not a bad way to go, especially if you think the Philadelphia defense can curtail what Kansas City's doing from time to time. He might go out there and hit 3 or 4 field goals. And he's good. He's very, very good.
Let's see here. My sports book, they've got 6.5.
6.5 what? Oh, for rushing? Oh, for home? Yeah, that's
total
that's
rushing attempts in the game. Mahomes.
That's too high. There's 5.5 south.
And the over is plus 110.
Well, that gives you a little bit of an edge because you're getting plus money. But you only have one book. But
yeah, that's the only book.
Well, that's the problem.
Well, I mean, I've got a couple others that I don't use though, but I do have a couple other accounts.
Well, you might want to shop because it's a big difference.
Yep.
Going over 6.5 is different than going over 5.5.
And it'll only take you about 15 minutes to find it, but it's worth it. So
yeah,
because there's only like what
1,200
props,
and then you have a couple pizzas, you have a hamburger, a hot dog, and lots of beer.
Yeah,
have a good time.
And you'll be doing that on Monday because you'll be at Tom DeMarco's recapping the Super Bowl. And that show will be here on the channel on Monday at some point. What time are you going to record that show?
We do it at 12 o'clock. We're going to do it 12 o'clock Monday, and then we'll have another one 12 o'clock on Thursday. But Thursday will be basketball.
And you and I, of course. Oh, okay. So you guys are switching over to basketball as well. By the way, when you switch over, is it NBA and college?
Hardly any of us talk NBA, but
okay.
Once we get into the playoffs, we will.
Okay.
It's so I find I have a great record in the NBA this year, but it's just following certain patterns and back-to-backs and stuff like that. But it's so hard when you don't know who the hell's going to be on the court every night when they do this load management crap.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times did Larry Bird have a load management night in his career? I mean, come on, give me a break. They're paid enough money to play. Get out there and play. Stop it.
They'll have to either find a new commissioner to change.
I still have to figure out what the hell's going on with Luka and Davis. I don't understand that. Somebody's got to explain. I've heard all kinds of explanations. Makes no sense to me. None.
Well,
I don't get it.
I gave you my take. So, you make that. We talked about that on Wednesday's show. I brought that up with Tony about how it's one thing to say what you want about, it's the reason that he did it is this, that, the other thing. It's another thing to do the trade so quickly and then decide on the one team that has the biggest market that the NBA wants the player to go to, and not try to see if there's other teams and other markets that would take the player.
Yeah, they did it behind closed doors. They never even offered it out anywhere.
Yeah. That's the reason that justifiably people are upset about. Oh, of course.
I know Dallas has different ownership. Cuban doesn't really have control like he used to. And,
no,
so it's. I don't think he would have let that happen. Honestly,
I think you're right. Yeah, He's not the type of owner. He's after winning. He doesn't want to. He doesn't care about restructuring.
And he doesn't mind rolling the dice. All you have
No.
to do is watch him on Shark Tank. I mean, for Christ's sake, he's a tough bird. He's a smart
Yep.
man. But somebody made this decision. I don't. It's really weird.
Who knows? Could have been the commissioner who made the decision.
I'm not a big fan of that commissioner. I'm sorry.
No, I think there's a lot of fans who feel the same way you do.
Yeah,
So,
I think he's messed the league up a lot.
and I hope whenever the new commissioner comes in, I really and unfortunately, the legal system gets involved in this, but the NFL gets away with it, and I know they get away with it more because it's a more grown up, manly sport, and I think that's why they allow it. But hey, if football can say you've got to be there for 2 years, whatever the case may be, I think basketball needs to do the same thing.
They definitely do.
Let those kids stay in college for 2 years. Now that they're making money anyway.
We got to go. We got to even talk, and we're going to be getting into baseball pretty soon too. But right now, the word is who are the Dodgers going to play in the World Series? I mean, there's no salary cap. They just keep spending money.
Don't get me started on baseball with the salary cap.
We got to do something about that. This is ridiculous.
It drives me crazy, especially
pretty soon. I mean, they're just going to go over and buy the whole country of Japan to get all the players that are over there. I mean, God bless them. I mean, it's a great team they're putting together, but competitive balance, forget about it.
It doesn't. I mean, come on. It's supposed to be about the smartest, not the richest, and that's the problem.
Well, that's why leagues have salary caps and
and they have the luxury tax. Oh wow, that seems to be working, right?
Oh yeah,
the luxury tax.
Yeah, right.
Give me a break. So that's baseball.
I'm
By the
sorry,
way,
I took us off point. I'm sorry.
Well,
I do that
Andy
a lot.
and Tony did say that they were going to start baseball this week, so look out for that next week. Andy and Tony.
The last. I mean, I had a real good NFL season this year. Not having a great college basketball season. I had a good college football season, but instead of originating because of the NIL and the portal, I followed some really good players, and I had a good season doing it. So I probably won't change that. But baseball has been consistently profitable the last 10 years for me. So I'm looking forward to it.
And I know Jim is going to get his computer straightened out. And when he does, just in time for baseball season, Jim's going to be spitting out some baseball daily shorts where he's going to be giving you picks. So look out for that. Because
I might have to go buy another computer because this thing, I can't. I'm on StreamYard right now, but that's on your link that you send me. When I do it myself, and it was working, but now it doesn't work anymore. I put it up there. I do it. I did another one this morning to test it. There's no visual, no voice, it's nothing. Nothing.
Well, like you said, you had them wipe it out.
It won't record my voice and it won't record the picture. But when I'm doing it this way, when you send the link, it works perfect.
Yep.
I don't get it.
Well, as soon as you send it over to the experts over there, they'll figure it out.
Well, the problem is they don't want to work on a program that's not an Apple program. That's the problem.
I know. That's there's nothing wrong, Jim, I mean, you can have an Apple computer and you can also have, just get a regular Windows,
Well, I downloaded Chrome. I'm on Chrome.
I know, but again, it's
not
Apple.
the same.
So
it's not the same. Okay.
Because you can have two different types of computers. You don't have,
Well, I guess I'll have to go get one.
Yeah. And use the Apple for your family. And, because that's what you said you used it for, right? Everybody in the family has it.
Well, everybody has their own.
But still, they have Apple. They have the whole
Apple. I mean, I'm on this thing all day long. It works perfectly for everything but that StreamYard. It's the only thing that doesn't work.
Well, I think they could fix it, the Apple guy. So, but anyway.
Anyway, I got off on a tangent. Sorry.
Don't forget, baseball is coming real soon. Again, hopefully Andy and Tony will start next week. And I think one of the things we want to talk about is updating everything that happened, hot stove wise, winter meetings, and all the signings, the big deals. And then before you know it, within a couple of weeks, pitchers and catchers are going to report. And then we're going to start seeing Jim make appearances on their show. And then of course it'll be off and running for baseball season as well. So we'll be
Okay.
covering a lot
Thank
here
you.
on Pro
We
Line
gotta
TV.
run. Take care. Thank you, everybody.
Take care,
Have a good
Jim.
one. Let's win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, let's do that.